I've discovered that I inadvertently played into what you folks did this morning with what I'm going to do. But it came to my mind because I was thinking about the Alachua County motto, and I've been doing a lot of nature for the City Commission. So today I decided to do a little culture. And just like always, I want to remind you that the city played a very big role in the story I'm getting ready to tell you today. And what I want to talk to you about is Gainesville's theater scene. Okay. And let me begin by telling you that, as usual, I was surprised by some of the things I discovered. The oldest theater company in Gainesville is actually the Gainesville Community Theater and Playhouse. And it was founded in 1927 by Mrs. Buchholz, for whose husband Buchholz High School is named. And it was part of a national movement called the Little Theater Association. In the late 20s, a lot of cities founded theater troupes. And the Gainesville Community Theater was founded in 1927 and has been producing plays continuously since then, with an interruption for World War II. Those were the only years. And in 1948, the Community Theater Association was reignited by Thelma Bolton, whose name you folks have heard a lot in here recently, and started producing three plays a year. In 1948, there was a lull in the early 1950s, and I don't know why, but I'm looking into it. And then in 1958, the theater was re-upped, or the theater troupe was reconfigured by a University of Florida professor. But for all those years, that troupe had no building. It was what they called a gypsy theater troupe. And often the plays were put on at Gainesville's Community Auditorium, which sort of sponsored it. In 1961, it got its first building, which was over on 16th Avenue, in the spot where the Community Theater is today. And it was actually a building that was owned by the owners of the property of the Gainesville Women's Club. And they donated that building in 1961 to the Community Theater on the understanding that, as the owner of the property said, they would get it off our property. And so the Community Theater moved it to where the Vam York Theater is now on 16th Avenue in 1961. And the Community Theater stayed there until the current building was created and opened in 2005. So that is theater troupe number one. And besides the Community Theater, the city of Gainesville helped with some grant writing that helped to create the current building where the community theater is. And if you haven't been to a production there recently, I urge you to do it. I saw Kinky Boots there, and it was simply fabulous. I was amazed by it. So that's the oldest group. But as you can tell, they don't have the oldest building. And that distinction belongs to the Hippodrome. The Hippodrome Theater Company was started in 1972 by a group of local artists who wanted to do more avant-garde theater than the community playhouse was doing. It started out in a convenience store and hardware store, and then in 1975, it moved from there to a warehouse. And I actually came up to visit some friends here in the 70s and saw one of their last productions in the warehouse out on 441. And then in 1979, in what was then quite a political controversy, the Hippodrome managed to get its hands on one of Gainesville's buildings that is in the National Historic Register, and that is the Hippodrome right down there. It was actually Gainesville's federal building. It was built in 1911. The post office was on the first floor, and the federal court buildings were upstairs. And when it was built as the most beautiful new building in North Florida. And in 1979, and again with assistance from the city and the state and a multitude of grants, the Hippodrome moved into the old federal building where it remains today. And the historic preservation people should definitely fix that elevator. That is, that's the only hand-run elevator left in the state of Florida. And it's unique in a bunch of different ways now. In 1980, a third theater troupe was formed, the Acrosstown Repertory Theater, and it was formed again with the idea of doing more avant-garde theater and with an emphasis on cultural diversity. And the city played a really strong role in getting the Acrosstown Rep started by allowing it to move from a storefront in the first year to the Star Garage, which was then owned by the city. And the Acrosstown Rep did a wonderful play about the controversy about whether the Star Garage should be kept by the city or sold. And you folks know it ultimately was sold. And the Acrosstown Rep, since that occurred, has been located down in the Baird Center where Heartwood is. So Gainesville has the distinction of having three excellent, well-established theater troupes, all of which have been established and to some degree maintained by the city of Gainesville. And I hope the city will be able to continue that sort of collaboration with the arts. Thank you.
Thank you. Always wonderful.